So thank you for already introducing my topic in a way, othering, and it's good that Dr. Roy brought this up and everyone's been talking about it. So thank you for that. And we've spoken a lot about Europe, so let me take you to the other side of the world now. I did my field work in Myanmar, and my PhD project talks about how Buddhist nuns are really important agents in post-war transitional justice in Myanmar. And though I do not talk about the ethnographic bits in my talk today, if you like the talk, you are most welcome to read the article. I would be talking about the conceptual understanding of othering and the banality of othering today. So yes, the title of my article is The Buddhist Nuns and Dialogue in War-time Myanmar, Understanding the Banality of Othering. Interfaith dialogue, IFD, or dialogue of civilization received significant momentum after the tragic September 11, 2001 attacks. The world since then has become more conscious of the identities they ascribe and the boundaries and fears that come with it. Dialogue is, as David Bohm maintained, a stream of meaning flowing among and through and between us. Dialogue is subjective and inherently means different things to different people in different contexts. Modular forms of dialogue can blur boundaries, can sometimes create it, and given the context, can embody the boundary itself. Theological and political influences have enabled and limited the manner in which these boundaries and fears are produced, propagated, and protected. The process of ascribing and acquiring identities enforce the phenomenon of self and other, whether members of in-group or out-group are valued or devalued on the basis of who they are, and by logical extension, are becoming involves who we include or exclude in the process. The process of othering is highly significant in the discourse of religious consciousness and practice, and in this article, using the concept of banality of othering along the lines of banality of evil by Hannah Arendt, I discuss how IFD is founded on the principles of self-other continuum. I emphasize that it's a continuum and not a binary, and is socially and politically constructed. And when engaging in productive IFD, it is important to be mindful of these socio-political undercurrents. IFD has undergone several radical changes, and today it is implicit and explicit manifestations of politics and power, while the purported objective it serves continues to be highly valuable. In this talk, I not only aim to critically examine dialogue as a possibility in Myanmar, but also raise questions about the epistemological, structural, and relational subject of dialogue itself. In order to illuminate on the complex trajectory of dialogue, I draw on my ethnographic exposition, which I do not talk about much in the talk, but then if you have questions, please let me know at the end of it. It is important to note that much of scholarship around dialogue is theologically examined and debated. While theological discourses indeed offer insights and methodologies to deeply consider intertextuality and challenge the linear totalities in the field, ethnographic studies bring in synergies among complex lived aspects of dialogue. I'm persuaded to think that Myanmar as a field site and Buddhist nuns as research participants can offer novel and thorough insights to the problematic portrayals of dialogue. When Hannah Arendt, who witnessed the war crime trials of Adolf Eichmann in 1961 for spearheading the transportation of millions of Jews and others to the concentration camps in the execution of Nazis' final solution, she asked a question: does one need to be evil in order to do evil? She was astonished to see that Eichmann was terrifyingly normal. She noted the evil often surfaces from mechanical thoughtlessness, and that the perpetrator, in this case Eichmann, was not aware of what he was actually doing. And this, she argued, was a commonplace. She underpins and underlines the notion of unawareness, the abundance and the large extents of normalization. Borrowing her framework, I propose the idea of the banality of othering, by which I imply that othering is a process, escapes conscious culpability, and is often involuntary. I'm aware that the context in which she contrived this phrase is distinctly dissimilar from the manner in which I deploy it. However, I must clarify that the prime focus here is not the context really, it's the banality. In her writing, she expressed the magnanimity of the evil, and that remains unobtrusive. And the danger in how it is a commonplace. Othering too is a commonplace that thwarts acknowledgement and examination. As a process, othering is easy to be left unattended and unaccounted for because it's naturalized to great extents. And the everydayness and the blanket effect of the process makes it a flashpoint of banality. In discussions around inter or intra-faith dialogue, it is pertinent to be mindful of the continual process of othering and the banality that comes with it. The intergroup threat theory that has gained considerable momentum in the recent times posits that othering stems from perceived realistic and symbolic threats. Realistic threats comprise economical and physical threats, while symbolic threats are outcomes of perceived group differences in values, belief systems, and practices. The core concept is that these resources and values are threatened by the out-group, leading to anxiety and uncertainty in the in-group. Drawing on this framework, it can be argued that othering is a process and a tool to convey divisive sentiments and antagonistic or subtle hate expressions. The threat theory is centered around threat, right? And this threat can come from someone who may be a member of the in-group, something which I'm trying to explore in my thesis as well. Because othering is not just about the out-group, there are others within the in-group. And in many ways, having dialogue with the in-group other is more difficult. Understanding and engaging with the in-group other is very difficult. This may occur due to insecurities of the in-group and the potential struggles the group may need to cope with the insider's perceived threat, especially those that challenge the central dogma and narratives within the in-group. Kilbinger studied Buddhist attitudes towards the religious other and argued that each religious community is aware of the existence of the other, and it is up to their willingness to decide how they want to respond to the other. It is important to address that Buddhism has demonstrated considerable inclusivity. There are scholars who have documented their concerns regarding Buddhism being overtly tolerant and inclusive. Hakamaya, in a study of critical Buddhism, suggested that Buddhism should be wary of too much of compromises and mushy tolerance. Hans Kung had written that Buddhism can be in danger for its easy and cheap tolerance. Deliberations around Buddhism and its perception of the religious other has taken the center stage since the Rohingya crisis. There is a worldwide clamor to exhort peacemaking initiatives between the Buddhist and the Muslim communities in Myanmar in order to ease the communal discord and chart peaceful possibilities for the country's future. These peacemaking initiatives may tend to overlook important contributors and actors whose absence can spell failure for the dialogue projects. While Buddhist men, especially Buddhist monks, are seen as the central leaders of dialogue, the Buddhist nuns continue to occupy peripheral spaces within the discourse of dialogue. The Buddhist nuns in many ways embody otherness, and as a result, their stories are not substantially understood or reported. Buddhist nuns in Myanmar navigate through the crossroads of gender and religious imperatives, and understanding dialogue from their frame of references can yield meaningful and nuanced insights to the discourse of dialogue. In studying the microcosm of peace-building structures in Myanmar, it becomes evident that several structured and semi-structured programs are operational in order to combat tension within and between communities. The scholarship and practice of dialogue makes sense when intra and interfaith dialogue are understood in relation and in support of one another. But often in discussion around religion and dialogue, negotiating with the religious other shadows the importance of negotiating from within the religion. The other is not a descriptive category, rather it's a political and linguistic one, something that we've touched upon in our earlier discussions. The otherness in intra-faith dialogue could stem from an array of socio-cultural reasons, from diverse hermeneutical understanding of the same text to one's political standing in the society. The otherness manifests in not just people like us versus people not like us. It also occurs between people who are too much like us. In conclusion, I would say that Myanmar is undergoing transitions of several sorts that has precipitated into transformations in tangible forms and has offered symbolic promises for a better future. Given the current political instability and religious tension across the country, it is imperative that the future policy-making strategies on principles of negotiations and mutual borrowing in and between communities. The phenomenon of us versus them will continue to be parallel to human existence. However, it is important to acknowledge the other and the otherness and the complexities that come with it. It is equally important to address the conceptual and methodological concerns that threaten the socio-cultural fabric, where both the us and them cannot share mediative relationships, and find ways to redress it. In the journey, the state, non-state, and local actors have to cooperate and collaborate to enable sustainable relationships between people and communities. Though international interventions, especially since 2012, since the Rohingya crisis blew out of proportion, have been somewhat helpful, constructive and lasting change can come only about when the policies are drafted in close partnership with all sorts of people in the grassroots level. The monastic community in Myanmar is highly revered, and it is true that their influence in the country is irreplaceable. Therefore, the monastic community should be all the more included in the formal peacemaking processes and dialogue processes, while being inclusive of the female faithful. In my article, I talk about the gender aspect and how that sometimes is a hindrance in the dialogue discourse. The Buddhist nuns of Myanmar are pious and judicious and are devout servants of the religion and the country. It is important that their agency is utilized efficiently, not because their participation in the dialogue process should illuminate and empower them, but because the Buddhist nuns themselves can illuminate and empower the dialogue itself. Thank you.